Welcome to This Week in Habs Land. I am Jordan and he is Brian, and we are here to dive into the first week of the regular season. Now you can find us on social media at HabslandPod. So Brian, this was a exciting and wacky kind of week for the Montreal Canadiens. Starting us off, what caught your eye the most over the first 3 games of the season, for better or for worse, or for wacky?
For better, the Detroit Red Wings jerseys are phenomenal. I know a lot of people have grievances with the glove choice. I like it. I like old school gloves with old school jerseys. I think it's fine. But yeah, those jerseys are absolutely sick. That was great. What caught my eye from a Canadian's perspective, Zach Bolduc on pace for 82 goals.
Yeah, write it in.
Incredible. And then I guess from the perspective of the team overall, we beat who we should have beaten. A similar team to us, probably a little lower than us, Detroit in our estimation. And then Chicago we beat. Didn't love that it took that long, right till the wire, but a win's a win. And then we lost to Toronto, which should have beaten. We lost who we should have lost to. That's sort of the feeling I have, but we could have beaten Toronto in that game, I thought, as well. So all 3 games have played pretty well for the most part. Got the results in 2 of them. All 3 were on the road as well. So starting the season off 2-1, despite starting all 3 games on the road, that's really positive.
Yeah, big picture, 2-1, all home openers on the road. You take that and you run with it. It was, broadly speaking, it's so good to actually have data, results, games to talk about rather than the theoretical. I know you and I kind of struggle slowly from the end of the Habs season through the off season, through training camp and preseason. Not that we do that many episodes, but I think you and I struggle more than most on this, where you get to it faster than I do, but we both get to it eventually where we're like, God, just play actual games that matter. So that was great. It was interesting how the quality of competition got worse over the week. I would have preferred if it had gone the other way. It would have felt kind of like a video game, whereas let's start with the Blackhawks, then we can get to the Red Wings, and we finish the week with the Leafs. That would have been better. It would have made a bit more sense. Having said that, what I thought was most interesting and what caught my eye a bunch, and I'm sure you saw it too, specifically on Saturday night against Chicago, was how much of a focal point Ivan Demidov was to Chicago's game plan. So this is his 5th regular season game. He played the 5 games against Washington, but broadly speaking, this is 5 NHL games. The second time he's played Chicago, funny enough. And he is, much like Laine Hudson last year, immediately getting under team's skin. And he was clearly, right? I'm not crazy. He was clearly a target
you're dead on.
Of the Blackhawks strategy of go mess with 93, right? Yeah. Whenever you can, hit him a little extra, right? I don't know. Nothing bad happened to him, but we saw Demidov get targeted by Nick Cousins in the preseason. And I'm viewing it for this is good, right? People are already aware of him, but I don't know. It was a bit, again, odd, but I guess it makes sense that they're already saying we got to slow this guy down.
Does it though? If it was you on the opposition, on the Chicago, put yourself as a Chicago Blackhawks member, and the coach tells you go after their most important player. Are you not going after Nick Suzuki all night? What's the point of hitting Demidov, who hasn't hit his stride yet? He's still figuring things out. It's not quite a situation where it's don't interrupt your enemy when they're making mistakes. It's not that he's making mistakes. It's just, that's not the guy yet. Nick Suzuki's the guy. Cole Caulfield's the guy.
But maybe they have figured out it's useless going after Nick. It's useless going after Cole, because who you're going to go after Suzuki and pester him? Do you really think that's going to work? Probably not. Same goes with Caulfield.
Probably not.
He's not going to engage with him. Now maybe Slav, but at that point, maybe your calculus is, well, we can't go after Suzuki, or it doesn't make sense. It's a waste of resources to go after Suzuki or Caulfield. Focus on Hudson and Demidov. Maybe that's it. Right. I'm not saying any of this is logical. I'm just saying clearly this was part of the game plan.
Also, they barked up the wrong tree in terms of his ability to not give a crap. He got cross-checked in the head into the opposition's net.
Yeah.
Cross-check in the helmet, and he's being there all right, man, we'll take the power play. Thanks. I get another minute on the PP.
Yeah.
So that from a perspective of having the player who's getting bothered, let's say, I don't mind that. Let them pick on him all they want. He seems to be very disciplined.
Exactly that. He didn't lose his head with it, and that's a great sign to start off. So let's jump into our 2 headlines of the week, Brian. And I'll start with mine if that's all right with you. And my headline is A Breath of Fresh Air. And this is obviously speaking about the Noah Dobson, Mike Matheson pairing, which I think over the course of the 3 games has been the most positive overall element and most important positive overall element that we've seen over these 3 games. Where, first of all, Noah Dobson out here making me look like a fool for even considering the possibility that maybe there could be a chance of the likelihood that he might not be ready to take on his role. I mentioned it in like passing last week, and I feel so stupid because he's great. He's making smart, safe, subtle plays everywhere. Not to say he's perfect. He's really not. But what he's been really good at, and I'm sure everyone's noticing this, zone exits are like, again, not perfect. Not never saying that. But to say that he's probably already the best guy on the team to do it in terms of from a like being a bit safer at it. And really what he's good at, I've noticed, is the kind of soft 5 to 10 foot passes to the forward coming up the middle of the ice while still in the defensive zone. Like he has noticed like, oh, it's better for me to rather than like bump it off the boards and take a chance and it might be icing. There's a soft play, usually to like the lower, the center typically, to bring the puck out of the zone. It's a soft pass where he sees, okay, there's no one there. I can make this pass. And it's just a lot of subtlety to like moving the puck around the boards, getting it back to Matheson. And I've loved it. He's been terrific so far this season. Mike Matheson's the other guy, obviously. There's a calmness to his game that 24 and 25 minutes a game, you couldn't get that out of Matheson. Playing exclusively on the left and down to about 22 minutes a game. Still getting the hard matchups, by the way. But they've been great. They've been by far and away the best duo. I had the natural stat trick numbers out there. Through the 3 games, they played 43 minutes at 5-on-5 with a 60% expected goal percentage. 52% Corsi, 54% Fenwick. Again, with the hardest matchups all on the road. And I think they've been a delight. It's been a breath of fresh air. It is a pretty darn good first pairing.
And that's also with the vast majority of their starts being in the defensive zone.
Yeah.
They Matheson close to 60% and then Dobson just over 55%. So much more of their starts are happening in the defensive zone. Obviously, Dobson gets some draws on the power play. He got a heck ton of them on Saturday night because, man, the refs love blowing those whistles.
Yeah.
And the thing is, I looked back at a lot of those penalties and a lot of them were warranted, which just, wow, complete lack of discipline from Chicago. But let's talk more about 5-on-5 because that's more interesting from the perspective of these two. Mike Matheson leading all players in 5-on-5 ice time, and deservedly so. I was wrong, so this is officially my mea culpa. I don't need to see more. 3 games in, this is my mea culpa. I was really worried, and I said it on the pod, I was worried about Matheson Dobson in the defensive zone in terms of breakouts because they're both the same type of guy, I said, who tend to cough up the puck, which I don't take that part back because historically they have been, but so far they're not doing it. There might have been 1 or 2 instances, but really nothing compared to the amount of rush chances that were generated because these 2 guys had their heads up and made a nice, simple breakout pass, often to a Bolduc-Gallagher duo who just shot up the ice and put pucks on net. So this is sort of my mea culpa for saying that because Dobson Matheson straight up works. I'm not worried anymore. It took 3 games and they look formidable. And it totally makes sense that they are the pairing to have the most ice time because things seem to go right. And there's a lack of panic with the rest of the team when those 2 guys are on the ice.
Yeah. The interesting thing is with both of them, like we're saying, okay, this is the number 1 pairing. Both of them are having a reduced, through 3 games, reduced ice time compared to last year. Both these guys were at 24 and 25 minutes last year. Even the last couple of years, both of them. They're both down to that 22 number. I do want to ask you about St. Louis' broader distribution of the defense in a minute. But to wrap the bow on Dobson Matheson, again, calmness is what I'm seeing because, and part of this might be the contract, man. Like once you have your contract, like financially, Noah Dobson, 8 years, he has nothing to worry about, probably for the next 6 years until you get into the second, like year 7 of that deal, where you have to start thinking, okay, like I got to get ready for the next contract. I wonder if there's something there where he's like, it's fine. I'm not on power play 1. Like those 2 guys. I will say for Dobson, he is, despite the reduced ice time, he's the only guy on both the power play and the penalty kill right now. Everybody else has single duties, and Jack-Eye, there was a brief moment where he was doing penalty kill, but that looks like that experiment is not permanent, at least. I don't know. It's been really, really nice to watch. on the rest of the defensemen. We can do them briefly, and then we can move on to your headline. What have you thought about St. Louis' distribution of the defense, where we have essentially three guys, Hudson, Dobson, Matheson, around hovering in the 22-minute number? Now, depending if we look at 5-on-5 versus special teams, whatever, then you have a drop to Goulet and Carrier, 19 minutes, 17 minutes, and then a huge drop when you get to Arbor Jackeye, around 12 minutes per game. And then again, from a special teams perspective, everybody has one duty except Jackeye's on nothing, Dobson's on both PK1 and power play 2. What do you think so far? Like, does it make sense? Do you wish you would see a bit more of Jackeye, or what do you think?
No, I think it works really well. Jackeye clearly is the odd man out in terms of trust, which he should be. The things that he brings to the table are great, and we love Arbor Jackeye, but I don't mind the fact that Carrier, his pairing mate, has 5 more minutes than he does on average. And also, we do have to mention that those 10 penalties I talked about earlier did absolutely skew Caden Goulet's minutes and Carrier's minutes, and even technically Matheson's minutes. Even though Matheson still is right at the top there, he would have probably played more if not for all that craziness going on. So I'm totally fine with it. It's an absolute luxury to have this amount of really strong defensemen to the point where you don't need to play a guy 26 minutes out of necessity. I think Dobson last year was in that situation. I think Hudson often last year was in that situation. And now that they're together and Matheson seems to have found his groove in his game, and Goulet's just playing very calm and smart hockey and actually is implicated offensively way more now, because being with Hudson just forces you to be like, okay, all right, we're making plays now. Here we go. So I think it's positive from all aspects. I'm curious to know if you're asking this question because you have an issue with one of these things, because I don't see anything wrong with it at all.
No, I don't think so. I'm sure there's going to be some people wanting to see more time out of Jackeye, and to an extent, like, he looked better in the preseason than he looked last year, and we know that third pairing was a bit of a sore spot last year, and we thought, hey, putting Alex Carrier on that third pairing should broadly lift it all a bit more. 12 minutes a game for a guy that's basically just playing at 5-on-5 as your third pairing guy is kind of makes sense. Like, he's not grabbing those extra 2-3 minutes on the PK the way that Carrier is, because Carrier is penalty kill 2 right now. Same goes with Goulet, right? Fair point. Also on the number of power plays skewing it. It's a small sample. This is all small sample size theater with 3 games in. I think it's been all right. I think keeping 3 guys at 22 minutes, Goulet's number will crop up a little bit, and that's just, there's only so many minutes to go around. Really, like, for a defenseman, you're talking probably about 114 minutes, 115 minutes per game total if there's only one defenseman on the power play.
Yep.
So broadly, I think it's okay. If we can touch on Caden Goulet and his eventful evening that he had.
Yeah.
First of all, game-winning goal. Let's not bury the lead, because you can't. I mean, that's just a fire drill, Brian. A fire drill that worked for the Habs for once. That we were on the good end of it. Everyone, you can just see Suzuki had the puck. Huts. Everyone was just like mad shooting, trying to find an angle. I mean, the Spencer Knight was allowing this to happen because he was just sprawling every 3 seconds. But Goulet gets the winner. Goulet had the fight. He didn't get an assist on what would have been the Bolduc goal, but his clean hit, and I don't think anyone's debated that, on Frank Nazar led to the instigator penalty on Crevier, which led to the power play goal, one of the billion power play opportunities they had. On the hit, I absolutely loved it. Super clean. No one's calling that out. And then what I really liked, and I'm sure you agree, but I'd like to know what you think on it, how he knew, right? You're hitting one of the young Chicago stars, that someone's going to come for you. What I really liked is how Teravainen is the first guy to jump in and scuffle. And at the corner of his eye, Goulet sees Crevier, a guy who is 5 inches taller, 30 pounds heavier. Goulet does not say, no, Teravainen has stepped into the ring with me first.
Right.
Even Goulet's like, get out of my way. It's not supposed to be you. It's supposed to be him. And I have a suspicion that is something that's going to gain Goulet respect around the league. How he accepts a fight. He's like, look, the Habs get a power play, and that's part of accepting the parameters of all of this. Is this stupidity of like, clean hit must have fight? Well, if that happens, you get the power play, sure. But he also understands, like, I have to fight now. And he recognizes it's not going to be Teravainen that I fight. It's going to be the goon, the big guy. And I just have a feeling that people are going to see that and be like, okay, he gets it. And he does well. And I think the fight was probably a draw. Like he knocks him first. He knocks Javier, gets a good shot on them right away. Javier comes back and eventually they kind of mellow out. But yeah, what did you think about that whole, Gouli's night, just a wild night he had.
A very wild night for Gouli. That accepting of a fight that, from my perspective, he didn't have to be in. He could have let him get the instigator and been like, I'm keeping my gloves on, dude. You can punch me if you want, but you're being stupid right now. The hit was clean, as you said. It was a really powerful open ice hit on Nazar. So I get why they were upset, but it wasn't a late hit. It wasn't a headshot. It wasn't from behind. Completely fair body check in open ice. So the fact that he had to fight here, I don't love that the game has turned into this where like you hit somebody cleanly, but it was a hard hit and they happen to be a good player. So drop the gloves, get ready. The fact that he did it, huge props. And you're right to point out that the guy to fight was Crevier, and now Gouli. He's earned my respect. I'm sure he's earned a lot of people around the league's respect, like you said. And they ultimately do get a power play out of it. So the refs did call it the right way, let's say. I also want to give respect to Demidov, Newhook. They get involved in the brouhaha as well, ultimately protecting each other, basically, and trying to make it show that the Canadians aren't going to be pushed around this year. Even the little guys and the skill guys are going to get involved and potentially make you wish that you hadn't jumped into this brouhaha to begin with. So big respect to those two guys, and then obviously to Gouli. In general, I think that Caden Gouli has had a very good start to the year. His pairing with Hudson works well, and he's been physical more than usual. And I find also, and again, really small sample size, but the thing that always scared me with Gouli was his turning his back at the last minute when he's about 3 feet from the boards with the puck, which means that the player hits him thinking they're going to hit shoulder, hits him in the back. He goes headfirst in the boards. Everybody holds their breath. No one likes that. I haven't seen any of that yet. Maybe I'm forgetting something. I was writing notes while it happened, but I haven't seen it at all yet, which is a relief. So let's hope that continues.
Yeah, look, he is, the way he's being deployed, he is the number 4 defenseman on the team. And that, I think, causes him to be overlooked outside of Montreal Canadian circles. He is a really good number 4 defenseman. If that's your number 4 guy,
yeah,
you're doing things right. And honestly, it's not inconceivable that 12 months from now he's number 2 and he's on a first pairing. So, and he was that by the end of last year.
Yeah. Like for years, we've talked about Gouli as being, well, is he going to be the number 2 defenseman? Maybe the number 3 at worst? Yeah, you're right. If he's your number 4, you're laughing.
Yeah.
You're absolutely laughing. That's a successful rebuild.
Okay, Brian, what was your headline of the week?
So my headline of the week, I want to talk about the forward group specifically. So my headline is Pace versus Poise. And I'm looking at this through the context of each trio having kind of different identities and different definitions of how they use pace and how they use poise. I think the first line is a perfect example of balancing the two really, really well. Nick Suzuki knows when to slow down the play and he knows when to accelerate. Cole Caulfield's exactly the same. And Slavkovsky's still young, but he's learning it. And I think that those two guys are great at sort of leading him towards the point where he can recognize in an instant when to use what speed, basically. Because I did notice that in this game, a couple times, Slavkovsky needed a little bit more urgency in his game. He received a pass at high tempo, which needed to be followed by another quick pass. Like the player who passed to him passed at that high tempo, knowing that he needs to get the puck off his stick real fast because the defender's coming. Unfortunately, he held on to it, got it stolen from him. Happened a couple times. And that's just one example. But the reason I'm saying is that I think it exemplifies a totally fixable problem in Slavkovsky's game. And that problem is pace versus poise, recognizing when to use what. I think the Doc Gallagher Bolduc line is another really cool example of balancing pace and poise. Bolduc and Gallagher are both just 100% like stick on the ice, crash the net players that they understand each other super well. And so far they've used that high pace and really similar styles to connect on a lot of different plays, some of them goals. Doc has a different skill set, their centerman. Him, I think, is really good at controlling the play quite well when the play calls for it slowing down. when the pressure's been on you for a while and you finally get some ozone time, and Doc, rather than just try and throw something on net and then they counterattack and the momentum's still on their side, he'll slow the game down real nicely. And that's a completely different skill set. So I think that actually works well. The two wingers being Galley and Bolduc just being balls to the walls all the time, like north-south, north-south. And then Doc is able to sort of slow the pace down when the time calls for it and set up some plays and do that. So it's nice to have both. Then you get to the third line, and Kapanen and Demidov, I think, are quite similar in terms of their pace, and the Newhook is just you've called him an energizer bunny in the past, and I think that's the perfect way to look at him. Like, he's just constantly going at really high pace, and I think that those two dudes I mentioned at the start, they're young and they're still learning it, but they're all getting it. And then that brings me to the fourth line, which that's the real conversation here. I wanted to give us a context with the first three lines and some interesting little tidbits, but the real problem here, I think, is the complete lack of urgency from Patrik Laine. 11 out of 12 forwards this week played with high energy, high pace, and one of them didn't. And so I almost used as a headline Veleno over Laine, because at this point I'm ready to see Veleno play on the fourth line. And I want to start off the discussion and see if there's going to be pushback from you, just by asking, like, is a bunch of unsuccessful power play opportunities for Patrik Laine worth being completely ineffectual at 5-on-5?
So, I mean, you know how I think about this, that this is way more tricky than the 12 to 14 minutes you're going to play on the ice, right? Like, there's a lot more of this is October in a team that you are hoping is playing into May, and that you have to be very careful on how you deal with some of this stuff. And it is not about massaging egos, but is about just, being fair and understanding that these are guys that are playing together and traveling together. And you have to be very careful with at what point. And we're going to get into it later about fans always wanting things to change. And, make this change to the power play and that change to this line. And understanding that 6-7 months here, and you have to be patient with stuff and give guys opportunities to succeed. Having said that, Laine just doesn't have like even a third gear at this point. Like, he can get a couple strides in, but there's just, and what I'm struggling with, like, how much of it is effort and how much of it is just limitations of his physique at this point. And that's just hard to, I can't figure it out at, 3 games in right now. But it's true. I mean, like, if you look at some of the advanced numbers for that fourth line, it has a 22% expected goal percentage. And they're not getting hard matchups in any capacity. They're getting very straight. And it's sinking a bit what Evans and Anderson do. And purely from a fit perspective, Veleno fits better with those two guys. Everyone knows that.
Of course.
We can all say that, right? And I was saying, I think it was last week, that I was worried there was one spot between Newhook and Laine. I actually still believe that. And Newhook has found a role. And we can talk about that line as well, because I also don't think that line at 5-on-5 has been terrific. And the numbers kind of reflect that. But on the Evans line, Patrik Laine on the fourth line does not compute. And I don't know really what the answer is right now, other than be patient. These are low leverage minutes. These are low leverage games. You can always, they've won 2 out of 3. I'm going to err on the side of like, let's chill out for a bit, but also like, because like what happens when you open that door, Brian, of like, let's scratch Patrik Laine in game 4 of the season, your highest paid forward, a guy who has tons of skill, and you scratch him on the 4th game. Maybe it doesn't matter. Maybe I'm overthinking it, but I also like, I think it's a tool that can be used probably this month, but it's just something you need to be very careful about. And there's way more than just like, the 8 minutes of that fourth line is going to play at 5-on-5 and how that affects things downstream. So I'm not against the idea of Veleno getting in over Laine. And I do think from a fit standpoint, like, we're not getting the best out of Evans or Anderson either. Like, we have to mention that, like, it's not working. And Veleno will zap that energy and just like, he will fly down the wall and do what you want him to do on that left side. I'm just acknowledging that it's tricky. That's all.
Would the team have played better with Veleno in the lineup rather than Laine overall? And I know we got a stupid amount of power play time. Like, consider that as well.
Yeah, probably.
So to a certain extent, like, these are professionals, and I know that you do have to massage egos to a certain degree and not piss anybody off, notably a really skilled forward like this. But I don't buy into it's only October from a meaningful games perspective. If the Canadians had lost 2 more games in October last year, they weren't making the playoffs.
Oh, they couldn't have lost
You
many
know?
more. They lost almost all of them.
They all lost almost all of them for sure, but that's a good example. And to say that, like, I agree with you from the perspective of give him a chance because the season is young and he maybe just hasn't found his legs yet. That I get. That to me is totally rational, understandable. Maybe he should have been in better shape to start, but again, we don't know if it's effort or if it's just his body can't do it. So we'll put that aside. But from the perspective, like, games in October are worth 2 points. Games in March and April are worth 2 points. No matter where you are in the season, every game matters the same amount. So to say that, like,
Yeah.
you know, I don't know. I just think you should be striving to win every single game when you're a bubble team. If you're, whatever, the Dallas Stars, the Colorado Avalanche, a team that's definitely making the postseason, okay, maybe the games in October, less meaningful. But for a team who's going to be on the bubble, who, if they make the playoffs, it won't be by 15, 20 points. It might be by 6 or 8. These games do matter. So put your best team out there. And part of this is like rage baiting to a certain degree because I see the dialogue, the discourse in the fan base and how much everybody's upset with Laine. And I think we're going to tackle that a little bit later, the fan base perspective of it. But I thought it deemed at least a discussion because of the feeling that everybody has.
So I've been thinking about it while you've been going on, and like based on what you're saying, maybe what I'm trying to really express is from St. Louis' perspective, it's about ensuring that there's trust in the coaching staff, in the players, that they understand that if someone else sees Laine and Laine has a couple bad games and then he's getting scratched. Now, some coaches might want this to be the message, but I don't think St. Louis is like that, where it's like, oh, he had a couple bad games. He's done now. An established guy on the team is now scratched. Some people might say, good. That's what you want the message to be. But you also, this is why I talk about like it's 6 months, it's 7 months. You cannot erode trust. If instead people are seeing, oh, he's giving Patty a couple extra games to figure this out. So that in the event when I go 6 games or 7 games without a point, I don't start holding the stick tighter or I don't start overthinking things because I'm worried about, and again, some fans might say, good, I want them to be worried and their spot to be up for grabs. Because what happens if this is Kapanen in 2 weeks or Newhook in 3 weeks or Anderson in a month and a half? Like, do you really want every guy having this thought? So instead, when it's very early on, and I know all the games are weighted equally, we don't weigh them more in March and April, but when it's this early in the season, is it not more about sending a message of like, I trust these guys, I'm going to keep them together. And look, he might be scratched on Tuesday night. I might be completely idiotic for saying this. That would be my approach of like,
right,
let's not pull the plug on this guy right away and just like sink him and he's an afterthought, especially when it's an established dude. It's not the number, well, he's slowly becoming the number 12 forward. But I think I just want to introduce that dynamic to the decision making here. But I can't keep this stance for a month, right? Like I recognize that this stance can last like another week or two at the most if you keep getting not even a 0 and a negative out of it.
So I think you're probably dead on from Marty's perspective. He is trust over accountability. There's a degree of trust there that has to be respected, and only when it becomes absolutely dreadful will he be like, look, I got to keep you accountable. I'm sorry. So that I do understand. You asked the question, like, what if Kapanen goes goalless and pointless for like 7 games in a row? Does he then get scratched? I'm not concerned with the results. Like, had Laine scored 2 goals this week, I think the discourse in the fan base would be different, but I'd still be singing the same tune of like, he's completely ineffectual at 5-on-5. Maybe it makes the fact that he's there worthwhile, but regardless, it's just not working at 5-on-5. So to me, it's more of an effort and abilities thing where if he just can't do it or is unwilling to do it, I got to call that out. And maybe that's unfair. And maybe like I'm seeing it very different than MSL is, which I think you're probably right about. I am. I don't know. It just, it strikes me as like, well, he could do what he wants. He's on the team, he could do what he wants. And when like we got the results this week to an extent, 2 out of 3 ain't bad. Had we lost more, or if we were gonna start losing more, like I think this is gonna become a more prominent discussion. So I'm fascinated to see what Martin St. Louis is gonna do. Like to be fair, also like there was a little bit of accountability in the Chicago game. He didn't get much ice time in the third. I didn't check his minutes, but I don't remember seeing him much at all. So the power plays also stopped at that point, but he didn't get much 5-on-5 time at all. And yeah, I feel for Evans and Anderson. This extends to them too, as you said before. Like, they're not getting a line mate who plays the way that they do, the way that they had Galley last year. They've had, other players in the past that just jive with the way that they play. So I'm kind of concerned with that. It'd be nice to have a fourth line that's very defensively sound who you can match up against anybody, but top lines are going to pick line A apart.
I think, having gone through this discussion, I think he'll give him the home opener. And then if there's really nothing going on, it starts to become a more serious consideration among that group. I think they'll give him the home opener. At least they won't scratch him for that. And then we'll see.
Makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah.
Second part of the episode, let's do some fill in the blanks. Brian, you took issue with the first fill in the blank I put together. And this is, well, I'll read it out and then I can explain why there is issue with it. The first fill in the blank is, it's only been 1 week, but blank has been my biggest concern with the team. Now, your issue is, hey, they're 2-1. Other than a couple things, and we just talked about Laine a bunch, there's really not that much to be concerned about. And my rationale was, I'm pretty sure I just copied this from last year where they sucked for a month. Start the year, especially in that first week. I mean, they had the good game against Toronto to win, and I think they beat Ottawa, but I think Monty had like 85 saves in those 2 games. So there was a lot to be concerned about this time last year. So I flipped it a bit, giving you the option to go happy. So it's only been 1 week, but blank has been my biggest either concern or surprise with the team. What do you have for me?
So I'll say the surprise first, and I mentioned it off the top, so I can keep it very brief. But Zach Bolduc and his gelling with Brendan Gallagher has been outstanding. Just really clean and simple playmaking between the two of them to get up the ice through the neutral zone, and then both of them just crashing the net like crazy people, like trucks, just wanting to get to the front of the net and bury it. And they both have the same mentality, so they just straight up work together super well. I want to jump also to, like, because you're right to say that I had an issue with this being one of the fill in the blanks, because we were halfway through the Chicago game when I messaged you, like,
right.
I don't know if I have rose-colored glasses on, but I don't really see any concerns. And this was when they were, I think, 2 for 6 on the power play. And then they proceeded to not do anything on the next 4 power plays and got back down to 20%, which, look, in a vacuum, 20%, that's decent. That's a decent power play. Like, it's not top 5 like we said they had the potential to be with 2 amazing units, but it's okay. But yeah, sorry to make you change the fill in the blank, but that's a concern, isn't it not?
Yeah, I mean, so I wrote this initially thinking Laine, but we already talked about him, so we can move on. The power play was the obvious next thing to be like, what the hell is going on here? And so, I mean, it's a concern. It's been weird. Even the goal they scored, the Caulfield one, was a joke of a goal. Like, I know it's just continual chances eventually you'll put one in, but the Caulfield goal was weird. By the way, I feel like that was a high sticking goal, but they let it go through with Caulfield. I'm not going to complain. Yeah, here's what's been weird to me is the fact that Caulfield is not just glued to the left half wall. That they've been doing this for a while. Sorry, by a while I mean like this preseason training camp and now regular season, where they're kind of being pretty fluid with where Suzuki and Caulfield tend to be. I'm okay with the fact that they have Slav on his half wall, on the right half wall, right? The opposite, so you can get the one-timers across, which is something that we complained about forever. The fact that Suzuki used to be in that spot, but it would kill any one-timer opportunities. Caulfield is somehow net front to bunch, and he gets the puck in situations where he has to kind of do like an inverted 180 to get a proper shot off. And it's resulted in some okay chances, but I find it looks really, really clunky. Put him back on the half wall, please. The other thing that's happening is, so like, I think Bolduc's been great. I think he knows the bumper. Truthfully, it's Suzuki needs to get comfortable with being the net front guy, or you do revert back to Slavkovsky being at net front. And again, that kills the one-timer, but maybe that doesn't really matter here. We haven't talked about the elephant in the room of Laine Hutson's contract because we don't think it's that important. But Laine Hutson himself has been okay to start the year relative to the expectations that he set very, very high last year. And I think that also extends to the power play. There's something a little off with it, that first wave. The second wave at times has more dynamism. I will say there was one really good Patrick Laine pass over to a one-timer on Demidov that he fans on. That probably, if he doesn't fan on, they score a goal, and 3 for 10 is way different than 2 for 10.
Sure. Yeah.
And I also noticed, this is my last, like, just like my spurt of notes on the power play, that there was a slightly different formation for the 5-on-3. It included Dobson and Demidov drawing in. And I told this to you, and you said maybe it was more just like because there were so many power plays and like odd lines coming on after the power play that maybe those are just the guys that were fresh for that 5-on-3. But I did notice that that was the first, like, oh, okay, we're changing. Suzuki's still there, Caulfield's still there, and I want to say Slavkovsky was the other guy, although it might have still been Bodzik because Demidov was in the Slav position. But whatever, it doesn't matter. Point is, Demidov and Dobson drew in, and therein lies the potential for who could step into power play 1 on both fronts. It's just been a little weird. It's only been 1 week. It's not a huge concern. It is still producing, but I can't lie and say it passes the eye test right now because I don't think it is. Relative to what we thought, again, raising expectations from 20th in the league to like, quite frankly, we're hoping around 10th in the league. We're hoping a jump of about 10 spots. And I think so far it's been clunky, really.
Yeah. On paper, these two units look a heck of a lot better than they do on the ice. That 5-on-3 that you alluded to with, kind of changing who's on it, didn't really work considering it resulted in a Blackhawks shorthanded breakaway. And just an excellent back check from Demidov. I want to mention that it was Nick Foligno who he beat in a foot race. So not a speedy player by any stretch of the imagination, but still the tenacity with which he got back to nullify him, precisely what we need to see from Demidov that we don't already see in the offensive zone. So I wanted to say that. On the Caulfield thing, I'm really interested in that because Caulfield, to me, like when he has time and space, is an excellent possession player. So do you want to take him out of that and just put him in a trigger role? The argument for that is, but he's also an excellent trigger player. Like the trigger guy has been Bolduc so far, right? Bolduc has been in the bumper where they go low back to high and then he takes the shot. But arguably Caulfield should be at the circle, just shooting the puck, just taking that puck and shooting it. Caulfield had just a flawless solo zone entry. He gained speed through the neutral zone. He placed the puck deep where his momentum's already taking him, gets to the puck first, establishes control in the O zone all by himself. So like he's awesome. To those who are saying, well, give Laine a chance and switch Caulfield and Laine, nonsensical. Caulfield does so much more than just being the trigger guy. So to those folks, I say no. It's interesting that it's not working. It's interesting because, like I said, on paper, they look like they should be absolutely formidable. They were just decent out of the 10 chances that they got. Chicago, Detroit, like that was a point night. So they kind of had to get one. Slav burying that juicy rebound off of the Caulfield shot. So it's nice also that they're scoring in different ways. It's not always just like, to the bumper or to the circle. They're scoring in different ways too. And really good hand-eye coordination from Caulfield. But yeah, I don't know what to say about the power play other than like, it's only been so much time, 3 games, about 1,000 opportunities, but just 3 games. Like, it'll probably take some time for them to jive. Would you be interested in him shaking things up and Marty shaking things up just out of curiosity of what could happen?
So I think it's still more positionally, and we've always talked about it's Nick Suzuki's spot on the power play that is the most befuddling part of the last 3.5 years on the power play. He's a good power play player, but for some reason, unless he's on his off wall, so the right half wall, it's like he doesn't totally know what to do. And I think it comes down to like, you mentioned it greatly, like with Caulfield, he can do both. He's become a not decent, but above average playmaker in our eyes. So he can get the one-timer and let that rip, or he can still move the puck afterwards, especially if Bodzuk's the guy in the bumper. Like in my head, I envision the cross ice pass to Caulfield that becomes kind of a tic-tac-toe with Bodzuk at the bumper, because everyone's going to flock to Caulfield or already over-leverage Caulfield, and that usually comes from the guy covering the bumper position. That should be what it's meant for. It's just figuring out the other spots. Hudson versus Dobson, don't change it. Keep it as it is for now, and it's fine. Like it's a little blip right now. Like the goals they're scoring, I'm happy that they're a little wonky and weird because usually it's the Habs don't get those goals. It's just the Line A one-timers. So I'm happy there's Slav just crashing the net, or even the one Bodzik scored, where it's that weird Caulfield 180, throw it on to the pads of the goalie on Spencer Knight, and then Bodzuk's right there for the rebound and they bury it. So I'm happy like those goals are coming through. It's just the more orchestrated typical power play ones are not there. One other small concern, and this is with TV Espal. For some reason, they thought it was a good idea to spotlight Ivan Demidov on every single power play to the point where it's like we're watching Fox do hockey back in the late 90s where there's a circle around
Yeah.
him and then there's an indicator saying what his name is. Like, first of all, do you know they wear numbers? And the numbers are there particularly so we can identify who is who. Believe it or not, we all know Demidov is 93 by now. I know it's only been 5 games, but we know. Okay. The second is I find it's kind of insulting and obnoxious of TV Espal to do something like that to such a mature hockey audience to say like, you only care about this guy. Here he is.
Right.
I hate it. And they do not do when Power Play 1 is out. There's no like, here's Hudson, here's Caulfield. No, it's only when Demidov is on the ice on the power play where they spotlight him the entire shift. I despise it. It's below us. Please stop doing it. Don't make me watch Gary Galley on Saturday nights. That's all I have to say about that.
Spot on, man. Yeah, I agree. I also thought that was a silly little misstep. They're underestimating the intelligence and the intelligence of the fan base that they are catering to. I don't know what you'd call it. Yeah, it's a team sport for sure. Is it pandering? Like, you guys are excited about this new kid? Like,
that's what it is.
I don't know.
There's something patronizing about it. And I find it's really below us and makes us look like a bunch of like children that only care about the new thing.
Yeah.
I despise it.
Well, look, like it or not, there are those fans in our fan base who only care about the new thing and want the old thing gone. Look at the Mike Matheson dialogue discourse over the past year. Like,
but this is different.
Like
this
it
is
or
different.
not,
this is one of the most important
exists.
partners in the Habs ecosphere where I don't know. I find it so below us to do something like this. Like I wouldn't expect like the local Vegas Golden Knights broadcast to do this with Mitch Marner, right? Like that to me would make more sense.
Yeah.
And not to like put them down, but like that is that type of audience where our audience is like, it's okay. I know he's 93. The numbers are gigantic. We all have big TVs nowadays.
Yeah.
Anyways, we can move on. That made me so frustrated and annoyed. And I was like, did I miss this? Like, did they do this for Power Play 1 when I wasn't paying? No, it was literally just for Demidov. So anyways, second, fill in the blank, Brian.
Yeah.
Blank gets me most excited when he hops off the bench. I think personally, I want to answer right away, but I'll just provide the context on it. Like, this is a really cool thing that's happening this year where every time there's someone, I'm like, oh, this guy. And then they get off the ice. And I'm like, oh my God, this guy's now on the ice. There's always someone interesting to watch. And some of it is the shiny new toy stuff with Dobson and Demidov. But there's still other guys when they're on their ice. So I'm like, okay, nice. Cool. I can watch this guy for 45 seconds now. So who is it right now, Brian? Who is when they come on the ice, you're like, all right, let's lock in for the next 35 to 55 seconds.
I think that this is completely recency bias because we saw so little of him because of just all the power play opportunities. But this is what I wrote early into the third period when the Habs just got their 10th power play. In my notes, I wrote, I miss Kapanen. I feel like I've seen zero of him tonight because he's barely gotten to play and is cold when he finally hits the ice. Power plays are good for some goofy fun if they're working, but having this many is absolutely insane, especially so many unsuccessful attempts. I'd have much rather seen 1 goal on 4 power play attempts in a full 5-on-5 Kapanen game than this. So that's my answer. Oliver Kapanen. I love the way that he plays. I want to see more of him. The fact that he's getting way more ice time, at least in the first 2 games, like way more ice time and responsibility than I think a lot of the fan base thinks he deserves already, just because of his youth, because no one sort of sees him as a top 6 player. But look, it's working really well, and he's playing with one of the most skilled guys on the ice, and they are connecting. Like, make no mistake, that connection was stronger than either connection with Alex Newhook. The Demidov-Kapanen, like that was the connection.
Yeah. So what's interesting is this line has the second most amount of 5-on-5 ice time. So it is the second line.
Yes, they do.
It is. Like, it's
exactly
3 games in. It's 25 minutes versus 22. But that's more than the other. So it's a second line. Yeah. Kapanen is, I think last year there was a lot of wishful thinking with Kapanen of like, he's a smart player. He's not going to make mistakes. Good defensively. It was almost like didn't notice him and that's a good thing type of expectation last year. Whereas this year, you're noticing him. He's out there,
Yeah.
he's making plays, he's flying down, he has great chemistry with the Demidov, like you said. And that penalty kill with Alex Newhook, that to me is one of the bigger surprises, not to go back to the previous fill in the blank. That's as far as I can tell, Newhook hasn't really had much penalty kill experience much in the past. He wasn't on it last year, maybe in passing. But Newhook being a penalty kill guy all of a sudden is great. And then Kapanen kind of fitting into that role nicely. And I mean, they already got the goal on opening night against the Leafs. Or not opening night. I guess it was the first game of the season for them because no Canadian teams were allowed to play on opening night for some dumb reason. They scored. He had an absolute snipe of a goal off a terrible, I think it was a Morgan Riley pass. And yeah, no, that's great. Having said all of that, and we talked about him before, and I made the jokes about Tavia Small, it's Demidov for me when he's on the ice. First of all, again, I can tell when he's on the ice because there's a giant 9 and 3 on the back of his sweater.
9 is the one that's
it's a 6.
It's an upside down 6, right? Okay.
Exactly.
And then 3 is like an 8, but you've cut a little bit off
more
on
or
the
less,
side.
yeah.
Okay.
Or it's an E
just so I know
backwards too. That's another way I remember it. So
yeah, that's how they view us. That's how stupid they think we are.
He's just absolutely thrilling to watch. I'm happy you brought up the back check. I forgot about it. It's the small moments, it's the subtle moments, and there's times where he's completely in control already, where he's like, "Nope, you can't take the puck from me here." It was one of the many power plays where he just kept control of the puck along the boards until he found enough space. I think he tried one pass down to it must have been to Gallagher, and it didn't work. And then he got the puck right back, and he eventually went up to get it to Dobson, and actually it led to got pretty close to a goal scoring opportunity as well. But that was just him understanding like time and space, and he's getting there. He's still trying some stuff that clearly worked in the KHL that is not totally working just yet, but I think he's just calibrating. And now that he has more time and more games, it's happening. We've talked a ton about Noah Dobson. I don't have to go through him. Nick Suzuki still forever. By the way, Nick, 5 points in 3 games, the most quiet 5 points in 3 games. Well, like quiet, just like you wouldn't even know, but it's always Nick, forever Nick, right? So those,
100%.
Those are the guys that are popping off to me. Obviously, like, yeah, it's been really interesting.
Yeah, I want to jump one more time back onto the Demidov-Kapanen train, just how well that duo works. In Detroit, like overall, the Habs played way better than the Red Wings, but the momentum really started shifting when the Habs took the lead, and this ended up being the winning goal. A 2-on-1 attempt, Kapanen to Demidov doesn't work. Almost works, doesn't work. The second attempt, right away after, Demidov to Kapanen. 2-1 Habs, and that ended up being the game-winning goal. Just an excellent duo. Kapanen sparked so many opportunities in the first period of that game. He's really, really good, and he's getting better. And then the first game of the week, Toronto, they didn't win, but like this was a really important goal if they had. Laine takes that horrific hooking penalty, just a lazy, bad penalty, but that gives the opportunity to Kapanen to do something absolutely special. His first NHL goal is a shorthanded, unassisted goal. Like, how better to describe a player who is fully willing to do everything it takes to do something good for the team he plays for. That was the 1-1 tying goal, really important. And then they killed the penalty after that. So that was excellent. They just couldn't really score much after that. So that was the problem. But that gave them a chance in the Toronto game. That was huge.
Yeah, I'm happy you brought that game up. I probably should have mentioned this earlier when we were running through the week. But so the prevailing wisdom was like the Habs they probably should have won Toronto and lost Detroit. And then, I don't know, Chicago, neither team deserved to win, to be quite frank. But I mean, I kind of viewed it differently. I thought Toronto was happily in control of that entire game. And they were cool ceding possession to the Canadians. There was nothing high danger that the Canadians were really getting. So despite the fact that Canadians had the more puck possession, the more shots, the whatever, this and that, I think Toronto was completely in control in that game. Fast forward to 24 hours later in Detroit, and it's the other way around. Now the Canadians jumped out to the lead, and there was the score effect starts taking place. But I think that was another one where the Canadians were like, we know what you're going to do. We're not worried about it. We're going to get our high danger scoring chances, and that'll be it. And thank you, John Gibson. Did you view it like that? Because that's what I saw. Like, I did think that the Leafs were the better team on Wednesday night, and they probably deserved to win because despite what some of the numbers said, I just found positionally and from like where the puck is at all times perspective, like the Leafs were in complete command of that game. And when they wanted to, they could grab their opportunities and run with it.
I think there's merit to that. I don't know. During the game, I thought the Habs had control for most of it. Like the first period, I think was like mostly Canadians. Second period went more Leafs, and then third was kind of split. Like, I almost see it as perfectly balanced, and Stolar's was just slightly better than Montembeault. And Monty, and it's not even really Monty's fault. I think he definitely got screened on the first goal, and was it the second goal? There was another screen. Like, guys were in his way. He was having trouble seeing pucks in that game. So from that perspective, Toronto played it really well, because that's one of Monty's weaknesses. Hint, hint to the rest of the league, and hint, hint to Monty on what to work on. But the vision through players' bodies, that's a tough one for Sam Montembeault. So I sort of saw it that way, but I do get what you're saying, that it was almost like I was saying before, like a pace versus poise thing, because the Canadians had better pace than the Leafs in a lot of the game, but maybe that game warranted poise and just holding onto the puck, waiting for the opportunity, and striking when the iron's hot, as opposed to just striking all the time. Yeah. So, yeah, there's something to that for sure.
Okay, final fill in the blank. We've alluded to this one a couple times already. The need for Montreal Canadiens fans to have a scapegoat on the team is blank. What do you got for this one, Brian?
Obvious. Because I don't have a subjective feeling about this. It just is what it is when it comes to fans. There's always a scapegoat. Hockey, soccer, baseball, like you name it. There's always at least one scapegoat. And like, I've been vocal about quote unquote mine in the past with Christian Dvorak, who I was very outward in saying that I didn't like the way that he played, and the fact that he only really turned it on with 20 or 30 games left in the season when his contract is about to expire. Like, we all see through you, dude. And now with Laine, I do want to say though that like there's a stark difference between having a scapegoat that you always blame for everything and then everybody else is perfect, versus recognizing where all of the problems are and going, yeah, but this one is particularly bad. And so that's how I feel about the Laine thing, because the power play overall was not great.
Right.
And like, there were still some lapses in coverage. They're still getting used to the defensive systems. Like, you could pick apart a few things in the Montreal Canadiens game so far to start the year and in preseason, whatever. But the obvious one is Laine. The fact that you're bringing this up makes me think that you think that like not everybody sees it the way I do, where it's actually just a scapegoat situation where the team is perfect except for this one mother effer that we can't deal with.
So,
and I think that's the way a lot of people see it.
To do my own fill in the blank. So the need for Habs fans to have a scapegoat on the team is sad but inevitable, which I think is basically what you said, but just with different words. There needs to be one. I don't know why. I haven't figured out the psychology behind that, but we've gone from, we can do the lineage of the past few years. It was Pacioretty until he got traded. And then It was Drouin. I can't remember much of one for the 21 season. Drouin started to fizzle out as Josh Anderson's became louder and louder. Then slowly, we also started getting the, obviously Dvorak, but then there was Matheson.
Yep.
Laine's the big one. Laine was picking up towards the end of last year, and that's definitely Laine is the number one target. Matheson's off the hook for now. But again, there's part of like,
until later,
like, hey, we were right. He shouldn't be playing this much time, blah, blah, blah. I think there's nuance and understanding that he was given too much last year. And there's a difference between a guy who's overburdened and a guy who's playing poorly.
Yes.
That said, the eye of Sauron is now also shifting to Samuel Montembeault. Yeah. So for everyone that's not me who can't see you right now, you just kind of shrugged in disappointment
and rolled my eyes. Yep. F off, man. Montembeault has weathered the storm through brutal seasons where we could not keep the opposition out of our zone, where the shots were 45-12. Now that the team is good, you're going to crap on him. Give him an effing chance. Give him a chance here. Like, so, and I don't think he's been awful.
He's been all right. He's been average.
He's been fine. Like, who, like
2 games.
What is it? What is he? Jake Ottinger? Like, he's not one of the top 3 goalies in this league. He's just not. He's not Hellebuck.
Right.
He's an above average goaltender who happens to be going through a little bit of a weaker stretch.
So there's an interesting subsection of fans, and it's not just Montreal Canadiens fans, it's not just hockey fans, it's across all the sports, where their solution to everything is go younger. It's go to the unproven guy that has untapped potential, and that'll solve my problems. It's happened for years with the Canadians, right? It's on and on. We can go back to like Jordan Harris should get more ice time than Mike Matheson and nonsense like that. So there's people banging the drum on Dobeš over Monty right now. I should remind folks that Jakub Dobeš, if we flipped the roles last year and Dobeš plays 40 games, not even 60, 40 games, the team doesn't make the playoffs.
Yep.
there is growing noise about switching Bolduc in for Alex Newhook because he's just a few years younger. I don't know. I don't understand that too. That psychology of that of like, oh, the younger guy is going to be better. That's how we can solve all our problems. Bring the younger guy in. And it's finding the new guy to pick on.
Yeah.
I said sad but inevitable. You said obvious. Like it's too bad. And I think we're having this discussion. We're putting it at the tail end of the episode of the first week of regular season games, just to like, it's part of the conversation, sadly, but it doesn't have to be, right? Like I think had a good discussion about why Patrick Laine is kind of in the doghouse slowly. But like you said, there's a lot going wrong. We don't have to just blame the one guy, right? With Monty too. Like I saw people blaming Monty for the Bedard goal, the one that went off his, midsection and then plopped into the net.
Yeah.
And there's people saying, well, Dobes would have gotten that. Like, what are we doing, man? And I can put the stats up side by side between Dobes and Monty last year. And at worst, they are the same. And then you have to factor in how much more time and more games that Monty played and the harder competition that Monty played for the most part.
Of course. Yeah.
I'm not saying Monty's been great to start the year. We know Laine has been struggling. Matheson in years past was overburdened. But there's something weird about the psychology of fans where they have to have someone to pick on. That's all I got.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know what to say about it. Like it would be interesting for some psychologist out there, and someone probably already has, but someone to research this a little further and look at like, what is the reasoning behind having to blame a single factor rather than seeing the overarching problems? You know what I mean? Like, and that stretches to every facet of life. Like if you're running a company and there's a particular area in your company that seems to not be doing well, or and everybody sort of just blames that. Like, why do we have to simplify things all the time to a single answer and think maybe it's just looking for the easy way out? Maybe that's all it is, because it's very much an easy way out thing. Like if you think just replacing Laine, and like, look, I'll cop to it. I said that Veleno over Laine would solve a bunch of problems. I think it would. It wouldn't solve all the problems though.
Yeah. Exactly.
And like seeing it as like you make this one change and everything falls into place, and suddenly the Canadians are a 114 point team and are first or second in the Atlantic and make the final. And like, it is not that simple. It really, really is not that simple. And on the Monty and Dobes stuff, like, yeah, check their save percentage and goals against average right now, and you'll be misled into think that Dobes is a god and Montembeault is not very good. 968 versus 894. Yeah, Dobes played a Red Wings team who really couldn't do too much. And Monty played the Leafs, who are much stronger, and then Chicago, who were relatively opportunistic, I thought.
I think part of it too, like thinking it through while we're talking about it, is I think people are, and part of this might be how long this person has been in the organization and the fact that they are drafted players, and that fans want to gravitate towards the draft picks that made them hopeful years ago, and they still cling to that hope. Because in saying it, it's Dobes over Monty. Dobes is a draft pick. Right. Monty's not a draft pick, right? If we're going to like, the other one I was bringing up was Bolduc over Newhook. Neither are draft picks, but Bolduc is the shiny new toy.
And the pseudo hometown dude, yeah.
You look at Matheson. Matheson's not a draft pick. So obviously he's an easy one to boot out of here. Josh Anderson's not a draft pick. Drouin is not a draft pick, right? I'm not saying this is a hard and fast rule, but maybe there's something to...
Yeah.
I didn't invest in this guy when he was 18 and he was a draft. It's the same reason people have a hard time letting go of Noah Juleson, of letting go of Matthias Norlinder or Caden Primo.
People even had issues giving up on Kotkaniemi.
Exactly. There's something to that. That is, I was sold that this guy, right? In hockey, you either sell wins or you sell hope. A lot of these guys are being sold on the like, there's hope here. This guy is the beacon of hope.
Yeah.
And maybe because they've been in our minds for Dobes at this point 5 years, like, I don't know. It's something to it. Whereas the other guy just kind of came in and he's not as invested. I'm not saying I have answers here and I'm kind of just rambling, but it bugs me I think all in all, like to simplify it down to like the human level, it just bugs me that we always have to have someone we're pissed off about. Or that some people, not you and I don't do that, but like, not that we're better than others. We get annoyed with hockey players, but it bugs me that there has to be like, it's this guy's fault this year. Like everything was Matheson's fault last year. It was. Everything was his fault. And now anyways.
Yeah, it's silly. And like I copped to it before because I would say like jokingly like who's my new scapegoat now? And then I said it would be Laine. And look, Laine it does happen to be Laine in the sense that he's the obvious candidate for not playing up to par. And it was Dvorak last year. But once again, there's other elements at play here and there's other things that the team can correct to improve. It's not all surrounding these couple of things.
I find the Dvorak
sometimes that's
Yeah, sorry. I find the Dvorak one a bit different though, because and maybe this is me just selection bias or confirmation bias here, but like I find with Dvorak like there was good reasoning and rationale for like being critical of him last year. Like he was legitimately underperforming, right?
Yeah, he was.
In Josh Anderson's 2023 season where he scores 20 plus goals, people still didn't like him. Mike Matheson has played 25 minutes a night for 3.5 years.
Yeah. You know what? Very fair.
Whereas
very fair.
Devo, we've always said he's good on the penalty kill. We never questioned that. I know you called him scapegoat, right? But like he was like, we understand his importance to the faceoffs with his left-hand draws. Yep. We understand his importance to the penalty kill. He has nothing else to offer. And I think we still stand by that other than March onwards last year. So there's a difference to it. I know we have the ability to have the nuanced conversation about it, that we don't condense it and crystallize it into a tweet. But
well, that counts too, because we talk for an hour or more a week about it and we try and research everything and analyze. Whereas, yeah, just putting a tweet out there is just the quickest thought that comes into my head. I'm angry. I'm going to post this. Yeah. And you're right to point out about Dvorak, the underlying factors of it, because with Laine, it's the same thing. It's a special teams specialist, for lack of a better term. With Dvorak, he was penalty kill and face-offs, you could argue. And then with Laine, it's power play. And then at 5-on-5, they're really not effective and they don't jive with other people. I think Dvorak fit better with his line mates than Laine does currently, but marginally so. So neither player is effective at 5-on-5. And then what they do on the special teams and in the face-off dot in the case of Dvorak have value, but do they have the value such that they should play at 5-on-5 at all? And so that's really what I want to come back to with Laine specifically moving forward. Like, I'm curious to know, and this is not it's a case study that refers to a larger question, which is you have a player who's a specialist at this one thing. Is it worth having them on your roster and wasting might be the wrong word, but using a roster spot that otherwise could be used by another player who's effective in more ways? Is it worth doing that just because he's great at this one thing? And with Dvorak, I think we had a weaker team. We didn't have the wealth of depth that we have now. So the question was moot, because you'd take Dvorak out and you'd put someone who's not ready in, or somebody who's not good enough yet. Like Michael Pezzetta coming in to replace Dvorak doesn't help you as much as I think Veleno coming in to replace Laine would. So that's what I'm going to be looking at moving forward. And so sorry to those of you who listen to us who are like, enough with the Laine stuff. Like, we get it. He's disappointing. We get it. But I'm going to be looking at that all year because I think it's a really interesting case study in value to an organization or to a team. Like, what you bring to the table. Is it this one thing that's amazing, worth all the other stuff? So I'm going to be looking at that pretty deeply.
Yeah, and I hope people walk away from this episode not thinking we're just focusing on Patrick Laine. I think we spent a good deal amount of time talking about Noah Dobson and Ivan Demidov, and we didn't talk about Lane Hudson that much, but that's because every other podcast is talking about his contract and not his ice play, which has been fine, and we can just move on. We don't have to care about that nonsense until something real happens. And with that, Brian, I think we can wrap up our episode right here. It's been a fun week. Look, 2-1, not the nicest 2-1, but we won. We had 3 original 6 home openers. We walked out with 2 wins. I think that's something to be really happy and proud about. You can find us on social media at HabslandPod. If you like what you hear, please feel free to leave a 5-star rating on Spotify. We have 25 overall 5-star ratings. If we can bump that number up 30, 35, maybe 40, that'd be great. And you can also do that as well on Apple Podcast. And until next Monday,